He's working on Markov, which is a brand new company, although I do think you have been ideating on it for a while, which is basically in the business of harvesting real world data for real life AI. So when I say real life AI, in the real world, we're talking about robotics, basically, right, that need to be trained on data that is usually, I think, harvested from human participants or human customers who are out there in the real world. The parallel that I make in my head is these Google Maps or Google Street View trekkers, right? They used to send, in fact, I think they still do send people out with backpacks and big 360-degree cameras that are sort of hovering above their heads. And they just go out and they walk and they record data of the streets around the world. And then that goes into Google Maps so that you can actually sort of see stuff, you know, with the Street View, that little orange guy. So that was the first time that I encountered this idea of sending out sort of blue collar people to go and record a bunch of data. But now, obviously, with robotics and AI, the way that things are shaping up, we're going to need a lot more data. And so you are basically, I think you're taking inspiration from, if I'm not wrong, Scale AI, right? And the way that they've also been collecting a bunch of data, but obviously for a different domain, you're looking specifically at robotics, right?
Right. So first of all, thank you, Caleb, for having me here. We're going to make this the best podcast ever, guys. So yeah, we have some really interesting stuff for you guys. But yeah, to address it, we are basically building the Scale AI for robotics. And the analogy, what Google Maps uses, they send out people to just trek, is very right. Even you have these Google cars, it's going on roads to get the Street View thing. And in the context of robotics, you have Tesla, which was building Optimus. They were recently just getting people. They were paying them $48 per 60 minutes just to get people to wear motion tracking suits and to capture data for Optimus.
$48 per 60 minutes?
Per hour.
Per hour?
Yes.
That's not bad.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And this is really it highlights the shift in the market of where we are heading towards in terms of physical AI, that we just don't have that amount of data that we did with LLMs. There's no internet. There's no huge chest of text that we can just use and get a general purpose model on. We're going to need data that is customized to the hardware. And
so we'll talk more about Markov. I'm super excited for the second half of the conversation.
Yes.
But of course, I also want to catch you all up on what is new in Indian tech, and then we'll catch everyone up on what you are building at Markov. So first of all, the first thing that I wanted to talk about here is Mad Mods. I don't know how many of you all are aware of Mad Mods. They're pretty active on X, although I think at the moment they're still pre-product or pre-launch, or if it is, it's sort of in beta and sort of closed to a specific group of testers. That's going to change very soon, though. They are actually starting a visual vibe coding platform for kids, right? This is the whole idea of Mad Mods. The way I think of it is kind of like Roblox, but with generative AI. So the ability to build games for your friends and then play them as well with your friends, which kind of captures the magic of Minecraft for me. This is what I fell in love with all the way back in, I think, middle school in the computer lab. The first time I ever got a chance to play Minecraft, and you could just do anything, right? It was incredible to be able to place blocks and build castles. And I think this was one of the early versions of Minecraft that we got our hands on as kids. And so it feels like, to me, Mad Mods is trying to pioneer the 2025 version of Minecraft for kids. So incredibly excited to see what they do. But now they're actually partnering with Design Championship, which I'll just say DC for short going forward. And so DC is just that. It's a championship. It's been going strong for more than a decade at this point, and they hold competitions for young people between the ages of 6 and 16 in India, in Saudi Arabia, and also in the UAE. And so with this partnership now, they're an associate partner. What's going to happen is that they are actually going to offer vibe coding and game design on their platform to the kids who are going to be participating in this challenge. And so to train kids and get them up to speed on how to actually use the platform, they're going to be holding free workshops on the weekends for anyone to access, I believe, although it's specifically intended for kids between the ages of 6 and 16. which is going to be a great resource, I think. Also, just if you have a kid and you want them, or even if you're a teenager, right? If you're watching this and you're like 14, 15, 16, this might actually be for you, because you could actually start getting your hands dirty in the world of game development, but in this new reality of having it be AI generated, right? And sort of vibe coding a final output of a game.
And so to get this straight, I can basically just like create my own game, my own world, and I can share it with my friends?
Pretty much, yeah. I don't think it's yet launched. Like, I don't think you can go to MadMods and actually do this at the moment. It's coming very soon. I've been talking to the guys over at MadMods. They're working hard to like actually make this thing reality. They've actually been using it themselves internally, and whatever they've shared looks very cool. Like, you can just kind of prompt, and I don't know if you've used any of these 3D models, AI models that generate 3D assets from just a single text prompt. But it's sort of building off of that technology. But then how do you actually turn that into a playable game, right? With 3D worlds and 3D characters that move around and that you can actually code to do certain things, and even setting objectives, right? Like, so that it's not just this useless open world with all these assets, but then no clear like gamified objective, right? So it's a mix of various technologies that are going into this. And I'm very excited to talk to them and bring them on Runtime at some point to like learn more. Probably around the time of the launch of MadMods as a accessible platform for kids. But this is gonna be the first time that vibe coding is actually accessible to the participants in Design Championship. So it's a pretty unique thing. Again, if you want to go check it out, I think you can just head over to, I'm not sure if it's a .in website or a .com website, but you can go over to MadMods and check it out. Okay, next update here. There's a company called Terrafac. They are based in Chandigarh, and they've raised 6.5 crore rupees. That's about $800,000 in their pre-seed round, led by Inuka Capital. This is an AI robotics company. So they also saw in this round participation from investors like DEVC, Bharat Founders Fund, Innovation Mission, Punjab, and angels, various angels as well. So what does Terrafac do? Their website, the front of their website says redefining manufacturing through AI and vision. I think that's a pretty sort of broad assessment or broad explanation of what they do. But specifically right now, they have this it's not a robot, but it's a platform for robots called Weld-T. And so it essentially gives robots access to AI and vision that they wouldn't normally have. And so basically the real objective is the company is they want to make machines in factories intelligent. They're not making the machines themselves. They want to make the machines in factories that already exist, that are already out there being programmed by real people. And instead they want to program those robots using AI. And they want to make it super easy for people in the factories to program the robots using AI. Just a tablet. There's something that they're calling point and click, which is basically, you just tap on the tablet, you do all these things on the tablet, and then eventually you get a result that would have taken a long time and someone who has a lot of expertise to make happen, but you're able to do it with just a tablet and some very basic tapping on that tablet. So the first thing that they've built out here, again, is called Weld-T. And so it uses this software and basically allows someone to control the thing using, I'm not sure if it's an iPad or what kind of tablet they're using. Presumably any tablet would work fine. And so all you have to do is set the object down on the table. I think there is probably an object file, OBJ file, that is brought into the software running on the tablet. And that's a one-time thing. So you do have to sort of create the object file. But then once you have that loaded up in the tablet, you can actually move the object around on the surface where the welding is going to be happening. And the robot has a camera that they've attached to it that gives it the ability to see where the object is at any given point. And then it can initiate the welding, even if the object has moved, even if new iterations of the object are introduced. Like if you have like a square panel, for example, and then you brought in a second panel or a third panel, and you wanted all of those to be welded together, it's the same object file. And so the robot is just able to see, using the camera that they've attached to it and the AI, the software that they're integrating here, it's able to see where the object is, and then it can kind of go ahead and weld things dynamically on the fly as an AI-powered system using vision, versus what is normally required, where you need someone who is actually programming the robot, right? It's expensive to hire these people who are robot programming experts. Now you just kind of have this software and it's very easy to load up, get started, and saves factories, ultimately saves them money. That's the end goal here, right? Is to, I guess in a way, replace the person who's programming the robot, which, you know, AI is coming into everything these days, and this isn't a big surprise.
It's coming for our jobs.
It's coming for our jobs, exactly. It's eliminating, the way they write it is more professional. It eliminates the dependency on robot programmers, right? And so the 6.5 crore rupees that they've raised is going to be used to fund market expansion, hiring, and also product innovation. Weld T is just the beginning for these guys. They want to enable robots across the factory floor with vision and AI, not just in welding, but in other spaces too. So they want to expand into gluing, painting, as well as inspection tasks as well. In the next 1 year, they also want to have their platform deployed across 80, actually, I think, yeah, in the next year, 80 deployments. That's what they're hoping for. That's what they're planning, and to have 20 customers. And then by the end of FY26, they're expecting to be doing about 8 crore rupees in ARR. So that is a little bit about Terrafact. And again, a company that's based in Chandigarh, which is not a place that you often, you know, when I first came across these guys, I thought, oh, like maybe I'll just get in a cab and go visit their office here in Bengaluru, but they're based in Chandigarh, which is cool as well. Yeah, there's a lot of people doing incredible things outside of this startup triangle, right? Bengaluru, Delhi NCR, and Mumbai. There's a lot of action. In fact, the next company that I want to talk about here is also not based here in Bengaluru. It's based in Hyderabad. It's a space tech startup that is incubated at IIT Madras. They've raised $1.2 million in their pre-seed round. This company is called Eon Space Labs. And so this round was led by MGF Kavach and HHV Advanced Technology. So what are these guys doing? Well, they're also in vision, although I don't think it's, I'm not sure how AI related it is, but they're making cameras for drones and satellites. And these are designed and manufactured in-house in India, which is great. They're using high-resolution electro-optic and infrared systems. This is what they're building, that are up to 3 times lighter and more compact than conventional payloads. So that's the main value proposition, that these are lighter and they're more compact, which of course, for a company sending a satellite up into space or sending up a UAV or a drone, how compact and lightweight a camera is going to have a huge impact on a number of different variables, including cost to the company itself. So this is clearly this is where they're moving. This is what they're doing specifically. This is the value that they're adding in this industry. This reduces deployment costs without compromising on image quality for their customers. And so the funds are going to be used to expand the team, support new product launches, and scale manufacturing of their payloads so that they can make more of these, especially as there are more and more drone and UAV companies, more satellite companies. The need for these kinds of cameras and sensors is only going to go up. Another company here, which was actually covered by TechCrunch, which it's called J Aerospace. They raised $11 million in their Series A round from Elevation Capital. And the round also saw support from General Catalyst, who invested in them in the past as well. They actually raised $2.75 million in January of 2024. This was their seed round, and that was led by General Catalyst. And then also less than a month ago, they actually raised an undisclosed amount of capital from Indigo Ventures, which of course is the corporate venture arm for Indigo.
I had no clue Indigo had like an investing subsidy also. It's crazy.
I don't remember when they set that up, but it's fairly recent. It's not, I don't think they've been doing this for that long, but it does make sense, and it's pretty cool. So the founders of this company, they're both former Tata Group executives. So they know what they're doing. They know their stuff when it comes to aerospace. They've worked on projects that saw participation from companies like Boeing, Sikorsky, and Lockheed Martin as well. And so they're working to scale the production specifically of metallic components for aero engines and aero structures. This is their whole business, is just this. They're scaling production for these metallic components. And there's a massive business. This is a massive business. There's a massive opportunity here. They're selling those components not to the big aircraft manufacturers, but actually to suppliers for those manufacturers. And they actually only have a handful of customers, about 6 companies that they're selling to at the moment. I believe they're all based in the United States. That's why they are actually headquartered in Atlanta, although the manufacturing of these components happens in Hyderabad, but their headquarters are in Atlanta so that they can be closer to their customers. So what they really want, their sort of larger mission is they want India to become a destination for aerospace component manufacturing, which I think everyone would be happy about. And then their facility in Hyderabad is a 60,000 square foot precision manufacturing facility. So in this industry, product introduction lead times are traditionally about 15 weeks. And so one of the innovations here that J Aerospace has been able to achieve is reducing that down to just 15 days, from 15 weeks to 15 days, which is pretty incredible. To pull this off, they have combined precision machinery, robotics, and IoT devices. And so what this does is it makes their factory largely software-led rather than it being human-led. Of course, humans, we're slow. We take time with stuff. If everything is software-led, then you can move much more quickly. Software, of course, is also way more predictable. And so what that means is that Jay is able to offer consistent supply to their customers without compromising on quality at all. This company is only 3 years old, which I thought was pretty incredible. The amount of progress that they've been able to make in just 3 years is very impressive. They've been able to achieve $6 million in ARR at this point. They're also profitable after tax as well. And they're expecting their ARR to increase 3 to 4x this financial year. So the company is growing. They only have 6 customers right now. So that all that revenue is just coming from 6 customers. Basically, we're looking at $1 million in ARR per customer, which is pretty impressive. And then according to one of the founders, Vishal Sanghavi, he said that we believe that to work, what we believe is that to work with lesser but better customers, not to have a transactional relationship, but a far deeper and more meaningful relationship. This is what they want to have with their customers. So we're very focused on not having too many customers. The business doesn't need to have a lot of customers because you can really scale with very few customers very fast and very quickly in this industry if you do it the way that J Aerospace is doing it. So hats off to these guys. Now let's talk about Markov. And I think a lot of people know you from Shiro, which is the last thing that you were building.
Right.
And we've talked a little bit about what Markov is doing at the beginning of this conversation. But for people who have just tuned in and missed the beginning of the conversation, basically Markov is this, it's basically a data harvesting company. And the harvesting is being done for robotics, for the robotics industry. So to train robots to do various things based on AI models and data that's been provided to these robots in the form of AI models, you need a ton of data that's captured out in the real world, usually by humans. I think especially for humanoid robots,
right.
Although even for other robots that are trained to do tasks that humans used to do, like the example that I think of is like someone flipping burgers at the back of a McDonald's or something, right? So like, wouldn't it be great if you had tens of thousands of hours of footage that has been labeled of someone flipping burgers? And then you just sort of, if the robot has the same form factor of a human arm with a, whatever it's called, a spatula at the end of it, or a burger flipper, then you can just train the robot to do exactly what the human did. And I'm not sure how many hours you actually need. Maybe tens of thousands is not enough. I'm not sure. You probably know way more about this than I do. Let's just use that example. To flip burgers, how many hours of labeled data does a robot actually need from the model that it's using to actually flip those burgers without dropping the burgers or flipping them up and having them stick to the ceiling? How many hours does it need?
Right. So that is a very interesting example. Flipping burgers, you don't have to pay a human to just like go and do all that. But yeah, coming to your question, how many hours of data would you need to like train a model which can actually like based on the hardware that you have, the sensors that you might have, and it just does the task. It does the task right. The thing is, it depends on what kind of method you use. Like, for example, some companies, what they do right now is that they don't use IRL data that much itself. They just, for such a simple task also, you might just go ahead with just simulations. Thing is, when you're just flipping burgers, if you're just doing like just one single task, to be honest, you can program it too. Like the company that we were talking about, right? You have people to program their robots. Maybe if it's just one task, you can program that too.
But then the burgers might fluctuate in size or weight or diameter, at which point you start to run into errors, right? Where if the thing flips it and the burger falls off, the robot is just programmed to flip, and so it's just going to keep flipping, right? Even though there's no burger on the flipper.
That is very right. You need some sort of intelligence at least to understand the physics of the world in like a certain sense, so that it knows it doesn't have to flip it too high. If it falls down, what should it do? And for that, what companies usually do, they simulate. They use simulations like different environments and stuff, just to basically just get all the context they can. But this is not enough, because you even translating simulation, what might be in a simulation to what it does in real life, it can be very different. So what they typically do, they pre-train in simulations, and at the end, they fine-tune on a subset of IRL data. And what we have observed when we have spoken to companies is this 1% of like this random, chaotic IRL data that improves the model drastically.
Oh, wow.
And this is where we are trying to add value. We'll get you this clean data, so that you can have the best models. But to answer your question, how many hours of time it takes, it depends, to be honest. It will still be like quite a subset. It won't be more than 5% of data, fine-tuning IRL data compared to like your simulation data. It won't be more than that. But 1,000 hours, 1,000, 2,000 hours for this task should be good enough.
And that 1,000 to 2,000 hours only makes up 5% of the data.
Oh, right. You're going to need a ton of data.
So what if you had like 100,000 hours?
Yeah, after
I don't even know how many years that is.
Yeah, that's a fair question. And after a certain point, you're probably going to see diminishing returns on like the data you have versus the output you get. But as long as you have like high quality data, which captures captures all the things you can. Thing is, real world is so random, right? Sometimes the patty might be like different consistency. You're going to need different amount of force. So you just want to convince yourself that you have enough data which captures most of what you will see when the robot is. Most of what a robot will see when it's doing it IRL.
So then what does that look like? I mean, if you are like what I just described, right? The person flipping burgers.
Right.
Like, are you able to just put some smart glasses on that person's face and have them flip the burger? Or is it more complex than that? Do you need like a complex setup with multiple cameras tracking the motion of the arm happening for thousands of hours? Like, what goes into this, basically? What is it going to take? And you can go outside of the burger flipping example. That's just what we're working with right now. But I'm sure there's all kinds of different scenarios that require slightly like tweaks to the model, right?
Right. So basically, there are 3 to 4 ways that we can look at it on how you could generate data for this sort of task. One thing is starts with tele-operation. You could just have a human actually control the robot using a joystick or something similar, or you could just like ask a human to hold a robot and just mimic the task that you want the robot to do. This gets really good quality data, and plus it's really it even teaches the robot how exactly it should move, because there are certain ways a robot can move it just doesn't look natural, but it gets the task done. One example I'll give is that you can hold a phone and like this in the landscape thing, but you can also hold it and like this. It just feels, this of course is not wrong to hold it like this, but it just feels so much more awkward.
Wait, what was the difference? You mean holding it like this versus holding it like this?
Yes.
Okay.
And just to give an example of like, even though I can pick up a phone and like this, it's much more awkward. It puts strain on my joints. It's just too long. Similarly, for certain robotic tasks, it just be some actions are just much more natural, and teleoperation is a good way to capture that essence. That is one thing, but again, it's not scalable.
Okay, how does teleoperation work though? Do you have to have like some kind of arm sleeve that is connected to all kinds of wires that goes to the robot in real time and feeds it the movement information of your hand and joints?
Not really, but basically most tele-operation, at least for this task, which has like a particular end effector, the end effector being like the end of the arm, in this case, the arm holding the spatula, you just have a human guide the end part. And the hardware will like tune itself based on like the motors it's have, and it will capture all the data. I mean, you'll have systems to capture all the data in place.
Is that considered IRL data capture, or is that sort of created in a lab, right? Or you don't put the guy flipping the burgers, you don't like connect something to his arm to record this data, right? It's happening in a controlled environment.
Yes, teleoperation typically happens in a controlled environment. The main reason being is just difficult to get all the hardware to the places that you're actually going to have it. So training is done usually done in in controlled environments. But yeah, coming back to your point about what the human's task is in teleoperation, hold the end effector and do the task. That's it. And yeah, this gets you good quality data, but it's not scalable. You need humans to do all the tasks, and beyond a certain point, it just doesn't get you high. It just doesn't scale. But you see, Tesla, they are doing this, and they're doing a lot of more stuff too. The thing is that then no one is ever going to say no to more data. So whatever data they can get their hands on, they'll get it. But yeah, teleoperation is one of the ways. The second ways is human mimicking, as in if we just had a video feed, let's say a straight head on, let's say camera was over here and I'm flipping burgers, and you had like someone annotate the joint angles of my arm, the positioning, and my wrist. If you could have that labeled data, we could train a model on top of that too. How does this compare to like the other methods, teleoperation? I'm not too sure about that. I'll get back to you in like maybe a later podcast. Is also one of the methods that we use. Just plop one camera, and get data to train a AI model on top of.
Do you get better data if you have more cameras for that method?
Yes, I would assume so, because the main thing is you just want to get the right joint angles. You want to get the right positioning of each part of each component. But then again, the main challenge faced here is it's still a human, right? Does like the human data translate to your custom hardware? That's also a problem it's being heavily researched on right now.
Okay, so these are the two methods essentially.
All right, and then coming to like another one is AR VR. Let's say you had like smart glasses. Our friend Shaurya is building those. What if we just like give someone smart glasses, which records your POV footage, and just give it to human workers, and they're already doing a task, right? So it makes a lot of sense to get this, but the reality is that video feed is just one of the many sensors, one of many inputs that these sort of robots would have. So this is it works for us humans, but it might not work for all robots right now. Or maybe we don't have advanced enough robots. We can just operate based off a good video feed. So you're going to need other sensor data too. Plus, it's not that easy to estimate joint angles based on POV data. You need like better ways you can place cameras to capture that.
Okay. Where does mocap come into this? Motion capture.
So motion capture comes in. It's particularly for humanoid robots, because you're going to have humans wear the motion capture suits. And a good example where this would be used is something like walking. You might have seen like these humanoid robots, Optimus, Figure. Their walk is very, very weird. And it's a bunch of reasons behind it. The hardware limitations and yeah, all that. But motion capture just basically gets you the human body data as a whole. If you want like just a particular action, just say, to take your example again of flipping burgers, it's just your arm, right? But say you want data for your whole human body, you'll go for something like motion capture.
Okay. So we're going to come back to Markov in a sec, but I wanted to know too, because again, most people probably know Dev from Shiro, which is your last company. And when I say last, like as of like a week or two ago, I think, you know, it was fairly recent. I remember you being up on stage at the local host demo day, talking about Shiro. And I think you also flew to SF and you presented about it there as well. And you've shut it down. So I'm just curious to know, what was that journey? Why did you decide to completely move in a new direction and fail fast? Yeah, just tell me the whole story, because I actually have no clue. I haven't talked to you about it.
Right. So Shiro was like this, was this thing I was building about, I started about a few months ago. I was building like this AI coding agent, thing. Think about OpenAI's Codex, Claude Code, something similar. And I was working heavily on the interface side. So you could basically run multiple agents to solve any bug in your code base, add a feature and whatnot. And this is also what I was building when I was at a local host hacker house where we, where where we first met.
I remember when we met, you were just so focused on it, and I felt like you were one of the most focused people. Other people were like hanging out, just relaxing, enjoying the evening, and you were just like in the zone. I don't know what stage Shiro was at. Probably just about. You were probably trying to get it ready for
The launch.
The launch, the demo day. So yeah. So what ended up happening?
Yeah, so we end up launching in mid-June, right when I was staying at the local hacker house, and we did really well. We got like a bunch of users, and after our launch, we got a bunch of inbound VCs, engineers, people wanting to work with me, people were using it, and it was probably one of the best feelings I've ever had. It's like seeing people use something that I've built. Like, oh my god, this is what a startup thing is. This is what a startup thing is all
It's all about, yeah.
Exactly. And I even got into the Versal AI Accelerator, which is basically this program for startups where they give like a bunch of free compute and free credits. And I was even and yeah, that's about it. But after Shiro, after I built the coding agent thing, I realized that it's a very shitty place to be in because you have so many competitors building the same thing. You have Cursor with their background agents doing basically the same thing. You have OpenAI, Claude, and it's going to be really hard to compete with these vertically integrated players. They already have the whole stack down, and it just felt to me that Shiro was more of a feature rather than a product. So after some brainstorming, I decided I'm going to take it in a new direction. I'm going to focus only on on-call stuff, on fixing infrastructure issues. Think AWS, GCP, and basically your servers. Building a coding agent which could autonomously fix all that stuff. So put my head down, got this up, put up another launch video announcing a waitlist for it, and yeah, that's about it. And not long after that, I traveled to SF for the Versal demo day where I presented Shiro. And that was a great experience. Got some great feedback with it. Met some really cool people. But at the end, I concluded almost the same thing, that it is still a small part of the development cycle that we are addressing, and it's going to be really hard to create value, especially among the other players, in this space. And this is all happening while I was in SF, where I expect to have the best time of my life, and I'm like having like a mental breakdown. Like, oh my god, what am I going to do? Am I wasting my time? Yeah, this is something I feel like people can relate to. But yeah, it was a hard few couple of days, but I had some great friends around me who helped me get through it. And I just put my head down, and I decided that here, you only live. Yeah, go ahead.
You only live once.
You only live once.
Sorry, is it shut down now completely?
Now it's completely shut down.
Okay. So then my next question is, why did it take going to San Francisco for you to realize that your startup wasn't going to work?
To be honest, it didn't depend on the place actually, but it was already the thing at the back of my head, just telling me, hey, you might want to consider if this is a good idea to be working on long term. But at that time, I was like, hey, I'm only going to SF. I only have users. Who cares about the long term? The short term looks very good. It was just like after the high of going there and presenting it and having to work on it full time, start getting more customers for it, and I realized maybe I'll have to reconsider what I'm doing. And that's like the question I had to ask myself before like getting to a conclusion that you only live once, and there are much better problems to be focusing on rather than, because I knew that if I'm not doing Shiro, someone else is going to do it regardless. It wasn't worth spending my time on.
Having shut your startup down, what is your advice to founders who are at that ideation and validation stage of their business?
I would say action is everything. What idea might sound good to you or your friends or VCs, right? It doesn't matter. The only metric is will users pay for it. So get and this is general advice, but just get like any working version out there, get it in the hands of users, take the feedback and iterate like a madman. Don't just keep it on pen and paper and for weeks thinking, oh, this is going to be it and all that. You have to act and get users as fast as possible.
I love your energy, man. Come on. Okay.
That's very kind.
Okay, so then when was it like, you shut Shiro down and sat down at the drawing board and thought, okay, what's my next thing going to be? Or was Markov something that you had already started thinking about before that?
So to be honest, the scale AI for robotics idea, it's not a very new one. People have been asking for that for quite a while. And to be honest, even everyone is talking about will robotics have its chat GPT moment. And of course, as with LLMs, the same thing with robots, you need data to create like a really good model. So it was a thing that people were talking about already. But personally, I started really thinking about it when I was in SF, and I was speaking to some friends, and we were just talking about why doesn't a company like this exist yet? What is holding us back? And it really like came down to a few things. One of them being that to start something like this, you would have to be in a very good position to have like cheap labor in like India or Southeast Asia. Plus, you need to have GTM in the US because that is where at the end all the AI companies are, all the labs are. So you need to be uniquely positioned to do that. Other than that, you have companies who are trying to build all of this in-house themselves. For example, Tesla and all that, they're serving themselves. But of course, there's definitely a market for like other companies too. But yeah, you just have to be uniquely positioned to do this. And but I was just like wondering why hasn't anyone done it yet? And it's felt something like really interesting to me. So what I did, I came back to India and I spoke to my elder brother, Jay, who had built a startup called Apricot Robotics, where they were basically building cleaning robots for airports, malls, saying basically a huge Roomba, but for warehouses and bigger places. And I was telling him, I was asking him about it. If data really is the thing that's holding companies back from building high quality models, why is no one working on it? And he thought that was a really good question to ask. And we did some research and figured out that this is something that we could really work on. And it was just like about 2 weeks about 2 weeks ago. So we put our heads down, we spoke to a bunch of people, and we validated what we were doing. And we now understand what the companies need. And we just shot a launch video which we released yesterday. And now we are really confident that we have the right direction. But then again, it's still all on paper. Now it's a time for us to execute like madmen. And that's the plan for the next few weeks and months and hopefully years too.
Okay. So it sounds to me like the solution here the unique positioning that you have, your unique advantage is that you're based in India, right? Not that that's a massively unique advantage because there's a lot of other people who are also based in India. And I'm actually surprised that no one has done this yet. I'm guessing there are people who are at the early stages of doing this as well. There might be already competition taking shape at this point. But what does it actually look like if you're actually going to start harvesting this data? What is the process for you as a startup? Do you go out and you just start putting up pamphlets saying, hey, we're hiring people to help us with our data harvesting? Do you go to existing places where people are going to be doing specific tasks and you talk to the people who are managing those spaces and say, hey, can we get in on this? Can we put some mocap suits on your employees and see what they're doing? Like, how are you actually thinking you'll end up executing this? And you might be still the early stages of figuring this out, so I don't expect a well-formed answer, but just your hypothesis at this stage in the journey. What do you think you're going to end up doing? How is this going to take shape?
Right. So the way that we are thinking about it, that initially we want to do everything ourselves. We don't want to give any other company say, hey, we want to put some sensors on your people and we just want to see what they're doing. We want it all to be in-house, and we can control every step of the process, from making sure that the people we are taking, they have the right skills, and we can just ensure that the quality is there. is our first priority. But then coming to the question, how do we get these people, right? And there's some interesting ways to look about it, especially for the tasks that we are harvesting data for. Say you wanted something. Say you want to capture data for a robot doing certain household tasks, right? Cleaning a toilet. Thing is, there are certain companies in India which already deploy so much human capital to do certain things. Urban Company is one of them. So the way that we are thinking about it is maybe we could get some kind of partnership, or maybe we can just like poach off their people to just like come like, hey, you don't have to travel to all these places. You just come to our AC office, our warehouse, whatever, and you just do
where we
the
have
same
100 toilets.
thing. Have 100 the best toilets in the world. And yeah, but it really is going to be an interesting problem to see how well we can get these people and whether they'll stick around for it.
Who's your target customer? I mean, who and have you already started reaching out to customers? Have you had, now that you've launched your video as of like I think less than 24 hours ago, you posted it. Have you seen any inbound demand? Are people like, or are they just curious? Like, what has the response been?
Right. So to answer your question, who is our target customer? It really, to be honest, I want to say like Tesla. I want to say Tesla, Figure, 1X, and basically everyone and anyone building general purpose robots compared to single purpose robots I could see in factories and whatnot. And the question, and now that we have launched, what kind of response are we getting? People want to see it in action. They want a taste of what kind of data we can give them. And right now, that's what we're working on. Firstly, understanding what our clients require, because the thing is, we are sort of like kind of right now, it's kind of like a consultancy, you can think of it almost. So we really have to understand the needs and what they want, and we are still like thinking about what kind of pricing model we can use to compensate our workers and even take a cut for ourselves first. At the end of the day, it's us doing the work, right?
No, it's a business. You're running a business. Have you heard of this company, Vana Robotics?
Vano Robotics.
Yeah, they're a Mumbai-based company. They're building humanoid robots.
Ooh.
Yeah, so they might actually be potentially a customer. This is an Indian company building this. So, you know, this is the kind of thing. There's a lot of Indian companies actually who are making humanoid robots. I did a video about it some time ago. I'm sure by like that was many months ago. So I think by this point there must be way more of them in the ecosystem. So basically what it sounds like at this stage, you're going to be a little bit bespoke, right? You'll talk to individual customers and you'll try to cater your offering to their specific needs.
Right. And over time, we'll have a system which can scale up to like any of your needs.
Okay. Well, I would love to be help you with the harvesting. You know, I mean, I would happily walk around Indranagar with a motion capture suit. Just do various things, you know. You could build a model for robots about how to be me, right? And then someday once Vana Robotics builds their robot, then I'll have like my shadow, you know, a robot to follow me along that's been trained on my activity.
That is so cyberpunk.
I would love it. Wouldn't that be so cool? My own custom shadow robot. What kind of obstacles do you think you're going to encounter? I'm sure you're already planning for those. This is a brand new space. Nobody's really doing this right now, from what I can tell. What do you think is going to be, what are some of the challenges you're going to face?
What are the challenges that we are going to face? The thing is, we are a marketplace of sorts, right? And the thing with any marketplace is that it runs a lot on network effects. So even if we're like getting our first customers, right, how are we going to get them? And probably our first customer is going to refer our second customers too. So we really need to drive in a wedge and establish ourselves and get mindshare over people that we are, if you want data to train your physical AI models, Markov is a place to go to. And right now, thing is, we are one of like, of course, there's competition brewing, but I feel we're one of the first one like publicly out there. So now that we have this wedge, we're just going to drill at it hard, execute, get results out there, and just establish that we are one of that if you want data, you come to us. So getting mindset of people is one of the challenges that we'll be facing, yes.
So the reason why India is a good place for this, obviously, is that the data harvesting is going to be relatively affordable, right? The sort of labor that is going to be required, blue collar folks, right? You won't have to pay them as much as, for example, Tesla is paying people for
$48.
Optimus training. Yeah, 40. What did you say?
$48 per hour.
Exactly, right. That would be, what is that in INR?
48.50 is like around 4 to 5K.
45.
4 to 5K.
4 to 5K, right, per hour. Wouldn't that be wild, right?
Crazy.
Yeah. So obviously paying people a lot less than that. Do you have any estimate for how much you're going to be able to pay me when I put on the mocap suit and start walking around for you?
Yeah. So to be honest, it'll highly depend on like what kind of task we are giving the workers and how much time that they are putting in. But to be honest, we obviously won't be much better than the Zeptos and Zomatos of India, which are just like which don't compensate the driver, the workers really well. And pricing is something that we are still figuring out. But yeah, we'll make sure it is much better than the existing options, and just basically we'll do it in an ethical manner, and it'll be much better than how the gig workers of today go about doing their jobs and the compensation that they get.
Well, I think that what you're saying right now makes a lot of sense. Obviously, very hard to accomplish that at scale. But one way in which you can achieve both is, again, by partnering with companies that already are employing a bunch of blue collar folks, which is what we already talked about, right? Urban company, cleaning toilets, for example, sweeping people's houses, whatever it is, painting the walls, right? I think that is where you can come in and say, hey, look, we're just going to help your employees get even more money, right? We're going to pay them even more. The other way that it could go, obviously, which the company is more incentivized to implement, is if you, instead of paying the employee, you just pay the company, right? And then they can sort of subsidize the offering that they're giving to the customer, which of course helps them to grow faster. Right. So I think that's the less ethical but more financially realistic, version of this. It would be great if that money went right into the pockets of the employees. Maybe you can do a mix of both, right? Help the company to subsidize the offering to the customer, and also give a small token amount to the employee for helping you out as well and contributing to your data harvesting, right?
That makes a lot of sense. And yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see like how this all shapes out.
I wanted to ask you about that. I mean, how do you see this space evolving? Right now there's 170 people watching. At least one of them is probably going to end up being a competitor at some point. Where do you think this industry is going to go?
I feel we are going to go away from humans. As in the human in the loop, the human data we need is going to become less and less and less. And that's the future. And just one thing, just to expand on this, people think training a model, I feel one thing that's not talked about enough, at least in robotics, is evaluating the model once you have it. Training a model is one thing. Making sure it works right in the right conditions is another. Because with a general purpose model, let's say a humanoid, there's so many failure modes because there's so many tasks in the real world. One task is picking up a cup of coffee. Other one is putting laundry in the washing machine. And if you want to test this out IRL, it's going to take too much time. You're going to have a ton of robots, you have a ton of different environments. It's just not scalable. And there's also one thing is problem that we are also going to address. But to drive home the point, how do I see this shaping out? Is humans are needed right now, but we have to build systems in place to make sure that we can move beyond it, because it's just not going to scale. That's the thing.
What's the market opportunity here? What is the TAM of this industry? Have you calculated it?
I don't know.
You have no clue? Okay. I'm just curious though. I mean, it would be really interesting if, for example, you got your hands on a working humanoid robot. I keep seeing these videos coming out of China of people like abusing robots, like just pushing them and throwing them around and hitting them with stuff. And it's like, clearly these are working, right? The robots are humanoid. They're walking around. They're playing with kids out in the street. I don't know how much of that is like propaganda, how much of that is real, but I have to imagine a lot of it is real. Couldn't you just go and acquire one of those robots, strap some sensors to it to track its movements, and then get a bunch of basically like synthetic data? It's kind of synthetic data, right? Because it's not human generated, it's robot generated.
Right. And yeah, there is some skepticism about the authenticity of these videos. But to get your point, can't we just like take one of these robots, put some sensors, and have it do everything? Thing is, that would solve like the hardware part. but the main alpha is still in what the robot is going to do, right? In certain situations. So at the end, you're still going to have a human who's going to end up controlling the robot. So if you have the human there, if you have the human controlling it, you might have the human wearing the suit itself.
Okay. How much do you think you'll end up charging for this data for your offering? I mean, you don't have to tell me the answer, but I'm just, if you can, it'd be very interesting to know what's it going to cost and what is the unit of measurement?
So the way that we are thinking about it is we're gonna just charge for the fixed percentage on top of the workers' pay rates. So for example, we are paying $5 per hour to one of our workers, and you want, let's say, 10,000 hours of data. So $5 per hour. So into 10,000, $50,000 plus maybe a fixed percentage on top. So 50K plus percentage.
Okay, that makes sense. And then how would you be doing the data processing and labeling? Is that something that you will, I assume it'll be something you do in-house, but there's also an option of just outsourcing that if you don't have currently the capacity to do it yourself. What's your strategy there?
Right. So with vision models, we saw that crowdsourcing the labeling part it works very well, because you don't need an expert to realize, hey, that's a traffic signal in the photo you're showing me. That's a mug in the video. You don't need experts to know that. And so to answer your question, are we going to do it ourselves? Are we going to outsource it? It's still something that we are thinking about, depending on kind of data that we have. Because if it's just video, then it's fine. But you have like other sensors too. You're going to need someone with like the right skills to interpret it right. So it really depends.
Okay. Now you are what, 2 people right now? That's it?
Is me and my brother. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Are you hiring? Are you planning to hire people? Do you want people to join the team right now?
Yes, we do actually, because our coming back to my previous statement of that we're going to move away from humans, right? And we are even looking to build maybe some sort of world model, especially in the robot evaluation phase. And once we have a proper model, how do you evaluate it against a bunch of different environments, a bunch of different cases? And the thing is, once we get like this housing part done, we'll be sitting on a set of very unique data, right, which could potentially help us to build like a world model which can really understand the physics of the world in different environments, different situations which are relevant to what companies are doing. So we're going to be really building our own models too. So we're looking. So if you have like experience in machine learning or building models from scratch, computer vision, hit me up at dave@markovstudios.com or just send me a DM on Twitter.
Perfect. And are you also planning to raise funds? Is that something that you're working on right now?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Raising funds, one thing is that we have to, of course, since like we are almost like a services business, you might say, so we're definitely going to need capital from day one itself to get this going. So we're going to be raising funds too. And just that is one thing. But the second aspect, I feel that as a startup, especially in such a competitive space, you have to raise funds. It just, in one sense, it shows that you have skin in the game now. I think with Shiro, what allowed me to just like so casually just like to get it off on a random day is that I didn't raise any funds. And this gives a signal to other people too. Once you raise that, you're in it for the long game. And that is also, I feel, important, the signaling. And so, yeah, we're going to be raising.
Okay. Amazing. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
I have 2 more questions for you, but they're totally off topic. So that concludes the Markov part of the conversation. The first question is, we'll start with the easier question. What are some book recommendations? Do you read books often? Do you have any recommendations?
I read a lot of books. Best book I've ever read, Geronimo Stilton. Get your hands on Geronimo Stilton right now. The plots, the characters, absolutely amazing. Top tier.
What is that? That's fiction, right?
It's fiction. It's about this mouse who's like an editor at this newspapers.
Okay. All right. Get yourself some Geronimo Stilton. Awesome.
Absolutely.
And then the second thing, unrelated, is what is the one thing that you can be the best in the world at?
What's the one thing I can be the best in the world at? Stand-up comedy, I feel.
Stand-up comedy.
I mean, to be honest, it's something that I quite enjoy.
But best in the world?
Okay, yeah, best in the world might be pushing it. I might be maybe.
I'm sure you're funny, but are you like that
I might
funny?
the funniest.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's gonna be. It's gonna be really hard to compete with the Amy Schumers of the world. But yeah, we'll get if this Markov thing doesn't work out, yeah, hit me up on stage.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Fair enough. Maybe you'll like. I think one of the things that I can be the best in the world at is the best data harvester. You know,
Ooh.
I think I can suit up and get you some very high quality data of me. And there's no one else like me, which is why I can be the best in the world at it, right? The best Caleb Friesen data harvester person. So very much looking forward to that. Seriously, I think that would go viral. Just me walking around in a mocap suit, helping to collect data. Thank you so much for coming on and
so much for having me.
sharing about Markov and also sharing a little bit about the journey of Shiro and how it eventually got shut down. I think that's something that people need to get okay with, the idea of building something with a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm and intention, but then realizing and accepting that it's not working, this doesn't actually make sense, and saying, I'm done. You know, I'm moving on to my next thing. And the thing that's most impressive to me, and the thing that I think bodes well for people who might join you in the future or investors who might back you, is the speed at which you moved on to your next thing, right? You didn't mope around. I think there's a lot of, I mean, maybe you had a day or two of moping, but there's a lot of people who would be devastated that they invested some amount of months or years into building something and they put their soul into it, right? Their blood, sweat, and tears, and then it didn't work out. And then they just crash, you know? They've invested so much and it's like devastating and they just get depressed. And again, you might have had that phase, and it's not wrong to have that phase, but like the speed at which you bounced back, I think was very inspiring for me. I definitely would not have bounced back as quickly as you did, and just moved on to this brand new thing that you're now probably equally, if not more excited about than Shiro, right? And you're not faking it. Like I can tell from the, you know, like you're genuinely excited about this, which makes me excited. And I think that's incredible, right? That you're able to sort of just pivot in a new direction like that and have that same level of enthusiasm. So
yeah, I'm so glad that you really like our story. And one point I really drilled home is that speed is all that matters. You have to move on.
Very true. All right.
Yes, sir.
There we go. Thanks everybody for tuning in.
And bless up, guys.
Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow at 11 a.m. on Thursday here at Runtime.